Welcome to Bedtime Whispers, where darkness comes to life and nightmares become reality. In my 30 years as an innkeeper, I have seen many different faces, both locals and overseas guests, and listened to hundreds of stories. There were regulars who came to my tavern for a mug of heady beverage every night. One such regular left a deep mark on my memory. A man of no ordinary character, a royal executioner. He told me his occupation in confidence, for he always hid his face under a mask before going to the scaffold. The royal executioner loved his work. He sincerely believed that he was doing a good deed, daily ridding our world of criminals of the laws of man and of God. He could have gone to any other tavern, but he found a good friend in me, and he liked my booze. Every week, every Friday, he would come to me, and we would spend the evening talking. Long conversations with this man had become something so familiar to me that when he didn't show up on the doorstep of the tavern on another Friday, I noticed it right away. He must be tired. This month's hangman's work has not been spared. A mass of pagans, witches, and pirates who desecrate our lands have said goodbye to life on the scaffold, I thought then. My acquaintance came a week later. It was past midnight on the clock. His eyes were swollen and red with tears. He sat down in the darkest part of the inn, where there was no light at all. It was the first time I had ever seen him so broken. The inn was empty, so I took 2 mugs of ale and a candle and sat down with my friend. He immediately furrowed his brow, showing obvious dissatisfaction.
"What's up, buddy?"
I asked him a question.
"I'm not used to seeing you like this."
The hangman did not hurry with the answer. First, he drank a mug of heady drink. Then he began his story. After a hard day's work, I went to my house to change my clothes. In my hands was a bag of clothes that I needed to wash off the blood of the executed. That day I cut off 15 heads from their shoulders, flogged 8 men with a whip, and burned 3 witches. It was getting dark outside, and I could hear the sound of footsteps. I took a deliberate turn into the first alleyway. I could see that someone was following me. I hid behind a corner and waited. The footsteps drew near. When the pursuer caught up with me, I grabbed him and pressed him against the wall. When I threw off the hood of the unknown man's face, I was dumbfounded. There was a girl of extraordinary beauty in front of me. In the features of her lovely face, I recognized my childhood friend Eileen.
Hello, Eileen.
Eileen, you're back in town after a long absence.
I answered and hugged her. I was once unrequitedly in love with her at that time. The plague swept the whole states, and she and her parents were gone. Eileen happened to see me as I was leaving the royal court. She had nowhere to stay, so I offered to let her stay with me. Taking the bag from her hands, I took her to my place. We talked until deep into the night. After giving up my bag to her, I myself moved to the guest room. It was important to me that Eileen be comfortable. At some point, I fell asleep. I did not sleep well, probably because of my work. I woke up to a knock on the door. I got up from my bed and went to the door. When I opened it, I saw the commander of the city guard in the company of 2 soldiers,
Oh, hello, Evane. So, this is where you live.
said the guard, looking behind my back.
Why are you here?
I asked.
Yeah, a family got slaughtered early this morning, and their kid got kidnapped. We've been round the houses and the cellars.
He answered.
I have nothing to look for.
I said with some irritation in my voice, but in my heart I felt sorry for the dead. I believe in justice. The perpetrator of such things must be punished,
Well, see you again.
said the chief of the guard, and left with his subordinates. I went to the kitchen and put on the stool for breakfast. Eileen must not be awake yet. No sound or rustling could be heard from behind the tightly closed door to the bedroom. Half an hour later, I set the table and, tired of waiting, gently knocked on my bedroom door.
I'll be right out.
Eileen shouted to me. Back in the kitchen, I sat down at the table. A few minutes later, Eileen joined me. Her hair was perfectly styled, and her dress accentuated her perfect figure. We ate breakfast together, and I got ready for work. I had a public execution scheduled for that day for the Gentiles who had been captured and shackled the day before. Eileen walked me to the door. As she said goodbye, she gave me a kiss that was pleasant and unusual. I didn't go to work. I hovered, elated by the unexpected affection. I wished that the day were over, so that I could return to Eileen. I decided that we would soon be married, and that she would bear me children. Ah, the daydream. An hour later, I had already rubbed 3 deserters of their heads. One of them managed to spit in the face of a priest who asked God to absolve him of his sins before he died. Soon people began to gather around the square to watch the women who had been accused of witchcraft burn. The first witch was Agnes, and she, the weaver's wife. She was the only one who was not frightened when a black cat jumped up on the table at the christening, while all the other guests sat, dead or alive. Agnes did not raise an eyebrow and continued to drink calmly from her mug. There was no doubt about it. She was a real witch. I believe in justice. She screamed madly as she burned alive, which meant that the sinner's soul was being purified by fire. The second witch was a devilishly attractive young woman. Her waist-length mop of fiery red hair and her huge green eyes drove men mad. Her sorceress charms captivated the hearts of many worthy husbands, and thanks to the denunciation, insulted wives, the minx was brought before a fair court. She roared in pain as the fire took her to itself. May God forgive her sinful soul. The crowd shouted excitedly. Witches are one of the worst evils for the people. I felt no pity for them. I believe in justice. Finally, the last witch, who had been sentenced to be burned, was wheeled out of the dungeon on a cart, while the people pelted her with rotten vegetables and scolding. I hung chains on the pillar and surrounded it with brushwood and straw. The third witch was an ugly old woman, and while I dragged her out of the cart by her crooked hands, she spat and muttered something disgusting in the direction of the crowd that cursed her. At the scaffold, she looked me straight in the eyes through the slits in her mask and said, in a squeaky voice,
Dash, you've been drugged.
I was silent in reply.
You can't burn me.
She hissed. I was still doing my work in silence, but as I chained the old woman's hands together, I loosened the loops. I was told to do it by an inner voice. The brushwood instantly burst into flames from the torch I had thrown.
She has drugged you. I'll help you.
Shouted, spitting, the old woman.
Sister, save me.
There was panic in the crowd. People were whispering and looking around fearfully. The witch's body erupted into a column of flame, from which a large raven flew out and disappeared into the clouds. The curious crowd scattered in panic, leaving me alone at the scaffold. I calmly waited until the fire had burned out completely, collected and scattered the witch's ashes over the square. Nothing more would remind me of the blasphemous deeds of these devil's accomplices. On my way to the market square, I met some men in carts who were hauling away fallen cattle after buying a carcass of duck and some vegetables. I headed home. There was wailing and crying outside one of the houses. Someone had been killed again. The guards would now increase their patrols and impose a curfew. I'm sure it's all witchcraft, contrary to my expectations. When I entered the house, Eileen did not meet me. The door to her room was tightly closed, probably asleep. I thought, as I was preparing dinner, I anticipated a sweet night with Eileen. When everything was ready, I approached the closed bedroom. But before I could knock, I found myself standing in a pool of blood. It was spreading out from under the door. I kicked the door open with one mighty kick. A pentagram had been drawn on the wall of my bedroom, and in its circle was the crucified body of a child, the same one the city guards had been looking for last night. His eyes were gouged out, his belly ripped open, blood streaming into a goblet that stood beneath the body on the floor. The vessel was overflowing, blood flowing over the edges, flooding the floor. I rushed forward to remove the poor child's body from the wall as quickly as possible.
Why did you come here?
I turned around at the familiar voice. Eileen was standing in the doorway, holding herbs in her hands.
Why are you? Why?
Trying to calm the frantic pounding of my heart against my chest, I asked her.
Yvain. You could have died quietly in your sleep tonight from my poison, but now I'll have to kill you otherwise.
She said and stretched her arm forward. Something invisible clutched at my throat and pressed me against the wall next to the crucified child. Blood gushed from my nose. My eyes blurred. My lungs were deprived of oxygen, but it was suddenly over, and the guards burst in. Someone had informed me of the witch's whereabouts. The old woman had not deceived me. If I hadn't let her fly away, we wouldn't be talking now. In the damp, dark cell, Eileen threw herself at my neck, but I gave her a hard push. My lash slammed into her bare shoulders and back, leaving terrible bloody streaks. She wept in unbearable pain, and my soul wept with her. All night I sat by the dungeon. Eileen swore me eternal love, and said she was ready to bear me children, promised me a happy life together, far away from these parts. I couldn't hold back tears as I listened to her sweet talk, but soon the charming promises were replaced by angry curses. Eileen hurled objects at the door, rattled her chains. Devilish strength allowed her to throw off her fetters, and she scratched at the oak door of the dungeon, breaking her nails. She defiled me, the people, and the world with her last words. Then she screamed something in a language I did not know. The morning was gloomy. I prepared straw and brushwood in the royal square. People flocked to the place of the forthcoming execution. Dressed festively, the local authorities also gathered. The bishop, canons and priests, the burgomaster, and members of the town hall, judges and bailiffs. The whole town had heard that the most aggressive witch had been caught. A mask safely concealed the streams of tears on my cheeks as I hastily chained Eileen's hands to the pillar and set fire to the brushwood beneath her. Her screams of pain still echoed in my mind. Until today, I lived in the king's castle and drank disgusting broke until I couldn't remember it. The executioner was silent. I poured him another.
It will pass, Yvain.
I said.
You know, when I went to put her on the death list, I found out this wasn't the first time she'd been killed. She'd been burned twice before. The first time was when she was 12, and the second time at 16. I executed her at 27.
The executioner said, and rose from his seat. He drained the rest of the ale from his mug and staggered toward the exit of the tavern. He paused at the door for a moment before he turned and added,
A goddess by sight, a witch by heart. She'll be back for sure.
"Thank you so much for your attention. Subscribe to the channel. See you soon."